Hey everybody, it's Jason Law here. I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee. And I thought I would talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on with this whole Bulgarian training thing that I'm doing, what I'm trying to prove, because there's a lot of people who are asking questions about it. What people need to understand though with the template, this is something that I'm adjusting as I'm going, meaning I'm not following necessarily a set template other than I try to squat 7 days a week, usually my Sunday. I sometimes go lighter. In other words, you guys see the 6 heavy squats on camera every week. Sunday, sometimes I hit my daily minimum. Sometimes I drop all the way down. Like if 375 feels heavy on my ramp up, I just do a nice long pause with it, rack it, and that's all I do for squatting for that day. Maybe play around with some barbell complexes or other lighter stuff on that day. But the other 6 days, I squat and bench to my daily minimum, which I'm trying to just slowly bring up. Overhead pressing 2-3 days a week. I might increase that back over to 4. Rotating in chin-ups and starting to do a little bit of volume with Pendlay rows, trap bar deadlifts. Some power snatches and some curls at the end, but the curls I'm now doing is to carry over to my chin-up. I want people to understand that I'm not doing it as an isolation type. I'm actually using shoulder extension and stuff, so it's almost a form of a cheat curl, but not really. Not what you guys would think of as a traditional cheat curl. That stuff maybe I'll discuss with you guys later. But what is it I'm trying to prove with this? I'm in a situation in my life where I've always loved this style of training. I did it before on camera for a while once I had a home gym when I lived abroad. Now that I have a home gym again, this is my full-time gig is YouTube. This is how I make my living. I'm in a situation to really push this program as far as it will go, or this style of training, and I want to show kind of what it's capable of for guys like me, someone who isn't the most elite genetics athletically. I'm not, and I'm a middle-aged guy, and I want to show people that if you can be consistent with a program like this, what it's capable of doing over the long term. Because I really think this sort of training, I think for older guys, you're going to notice a lot less joint connective tissue problems, things like that. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to a lot of people. You're going to be like, but it's heavy weights every day. There's no way your joints and tendons don't hurt. Yeah, they do at first. But what I've noticed with it, the further along you go with it, the less they hurt. Meaning now that I'm pressing, like bench pressing 6 days a week and doing some overhead pressing for training maxes and a little bit of dips for no more than 3 reps, my elbows and stuff, I don't get any connective tissue soreness. I don't feel like I need to deload, and I haven't deloaded those since I started this system again. I'm not getting those problems that you get from doing a lot of volume. I'm just not. Occasionally my connective tissue around my knees and IT bands get inflamed, but I'm seeing less and less of that. In fact, once I got past about 435 for my daily minimum on my squats, that started going away. Meaning that tenderness or inflammation that I get in my IT bands and stuff has been reducing as my daily minimums have been going up, and it was really bad at first. And overall, I think this is a very safe way for older lifters to train who have their technique dialed in. Now, when it comes down to what people are doing with it, I think a lot of people need to note that there are some extremely strong powerlifters who do this, and barring someone like Greg Knuckles, a lot of them are really, really lean. If you start looking through who's associated with this training style, even among the drug-tested guys, even guys over in the IPF who are subject to off-season testing, a lot of them are very lean, and then the ones who do just a little bit of accessory work and watch their diet a bit, they look similar to bodybuilders. So it's an interesting observation there. So it kind of tells us something that this is a sort of system that, and again, a lot of guys who run it, there's a lot of testimonials, a lot of guys who start running this when they reach a certain threshold, they struggle to maintain body weight. They start losing body fat unless they're eating just a garbage diet. And I mean, I'm kind of at that point now also. I mean, I was carrying a fair amount of body fat and still am at the start of this, but now the scale is going down. As my work capacity is increasing on this program, because I'm not eating junk food, I'm eating mostly bro foods, I'm eating fairly clean. I would say 95% clean. The scale is starting to come down. My work capacity and metabolic rate is starting to exceed the food I'm putting down. So, I mean, I'm losing about 1.5 pounds every single week right now, while the strength has still been going up. I've still been PRing while doing that. So, what I'm trying to do with this system, sorry guys, is really show what it's capable of doing in the long term for guys who aren't these elite powerlifters who have been running it. Because it's an interesting way to train, and it's something that people note who do it longer and longer. They all get really strong. They all get really strong. And I think what we need to understand here is that some people say, oh, it's a lazy way to train. Well, they're all caught up in this bodybuilder pump idea. And the point here is that there's more and more data emerging, even though there is data on all this metabolic fatigue and high rep work and everything else. The data that's been emerging is showing 1 to 3 reps are capable of building maximum muscle mass. They are. A system like this, the volume is lower, but again, we're coming back to the point of what is it that we see over and over. When it is studied, when drugs are taken out of the mix, we're getting multiple big studies looking at now that strength is absolutely correlated with muscle size. In other words, the stronger you are, say on a barbell squat, the more muscle you have on a DEXA scan relative to your height. And it's not a lot of variation, meaning you're only seeing, when they're looking at it, people who have about the same amount of muscle at the same height, there's less than a 10% variation in their max squats of the entire, like if you take 5 or 6 or 8 people who all know how to squat, their max squats are all within 10% of each other usually when you really test this stuff. So in other words, if you're getting stronger and stronger on it, you are going to gain muscle. Now, we could argue that it might not produce the best physiques because certain muscles might get neglected depending on what lifts you're doing. The fact that singles do tend to promote more growth in certain areas than others on some of these big lifts. And that's fine. That's where you can do a little bit of accessory. And I think that's the other point too, because I've been gaining muscle doing it. People have noticed it. They're like, you are growing. And I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. I am not on any sort of anabolic blast. I'm on my prescription TRT. Now, granted, I previously have been a gear user when younger, so there could be muscle memory contributing. So I don't claim natty, but my testosterone has been in the normal range the entire time I've been running this. It's actually been in the normal range for years now, for years. I have not been outside the normal testosterone level for a very, very, very long time. So just so that we're clear on that, it's not like I'm blasting a bunch of gear to do it. And yet I'm still seem to be gaining size at this point. So it does work, but I'm also adding a little bit of accessory stuff in because I have areas that I know need to come up. But I'm not doing a bunch of reps either. I'm not doing a bunch of reps. I mean, even some of the little bit of isolation stuff I'm doing, I'm not going over about 6 reps on any of that. And it's not even real isolation. Like even my curls, I've started dropping down to doing sets of 3 with the type of curls I'm doing, where you bring it up, and just doing multiple sets of 3. Same thing, my dips, I do sets of 3. The rows, like you guys have seen, sets of 3. So the bit of accessory work I'm doing, I'm keeping it relatively heavy because, again, I want the best strength carryover. I want to gain strength as quickly as possible. And I'm looking at these muscles and saying, okay, some of these muscles need to get stronger to help with the main lifts. And it does seem to be working because my numbers are still just coming up. But yeah, I want to show what this system is really capable of doing in the long term for middle-aged guys who aren't extremely genetically gifted athletes and things like that, so to give people a more realistic expectation for a lot of you guys of what you can do with a system like this, because I believe in it. I like it. It's fun. For me, and this is what it comes down to also, some people say, well, so what? I would rather do something else. I don't like lifting heavy. Hey, that's great. Go do something else. But a lot of us like to lift heavy, and a lot of this dogma, because of the bodybuilding dogma, people have been told for years that coming in and doing lots of heavy singles won't get you jacked. It doesn't work. You can't do it. You can't recover from it. But then when it started to be looked at, it's finding that's not the case. It's not actually based on real evidence, because the people who do train this way, it does work very, very well if you know how to run it correctly. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a viable alternative. I'm not saying it's necessarily better than another style of training for your goals, but I'm saying there's a viable alternative to getting strong and jacked to doing a bunch of sets of 10 and having 37 different exercise variations and all this stuff. What I'm telling people is that you can come in and focus mostly on heavy singles on the big basic lifts. I'm doing 1 rep sets and focusing on maximum strength, and you can still get strong and jacked, and if you do it correctly, you can recover, and yeah, you can even get away with it up to every day if your lifestyle allows for it. And I'm showing it and want to show it in more of an older lifter rather than any of these guys who've been doing it in their 20s and getting amazing results. I guess what I'm trying to show is that this can work for guys who don't have tons of genetic gifts athletically, who are getting older. They might be past their prime of showing, look, this system can still work, and it works very, very well for that. So that's where I'm trying to go with it. So hopefully that clarifies for a lot of people what I'm trying to do here. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.